You know, when I was preparing for this, I went back and I listened to a lot of stuff and I watched a lot of things, and I'm amazed at how often the space is actually fooling me into thinking there's more complex things going on.
Yeah.
Do you remember figuring that out? Like, do you remember having an epiphany about space versus, you know, sonic, filling the sound with all these?
Minimalism was very much part of the movement that we grew up in. And literally, it was why play 3 strings when 2 strings will do. When we started to go into the larger venues, we realized that because the sound can get so confused and so messed up because of reverberations, and you're better off keeping it as simple as possible in a bigger venue. So almost our sound started to get even more stripped down the bigger the venues got. And exactly that, you know, one note out in, you know, reverberating through stadium means something different in that size venue. It's like playing in a cathedral. One single note, it'll fill the whole room. So if you try to play too fast or too many things, it just gets to be a jumble. So that, I would say we grew up and our arrangements became more and more stripped down as the band started to play bigger venues.
And did that work its way into your songwriting as well?
Sometimes unconsciously, but then laterally I think we now think in terms of how a song will perform on stage in front of an audience, because as a band we grew up on a stage. You know, we're not a studio band, we're a live band that goes into the studio to make albums. And that instinct for the music that's going to connect is with us because of so many shows early on where it was about survival. That sort of informed our album recordings. From the first album, Boy, that was basically our live set, pretty much played in the studio.
But it's funny to hear you say that you're essentially a live band, because you're, you know, the textures you create and the riffs you write and just the layering of sound that goes on, it's also very, I mean, people could argue that the studio is a great instrument for you.
You're right, we've used the studio for many years as a kind of songwriting tool and a place where, you know, a sonic experiment can lead you to an idea that you never would have got to sitting with an acoustic guitar and a piano. I think of the song Bad. Brian had was playing around with our sequencer, and he just got this new keyboard, the DX7, and he just prepared a little sequence, and we were listening to it, and I saw Adam start to go for the bass, and Larry was heading for the drum kit, so I just picked up the guitar, and we just started playing over this little sequence that Brian had created. And Bono came in the room and just started singing. And that song, we worked on it afterwards, but basically the guts of that song was totally improvised over this little beginning. And we'd never really worked off a keyboard part in that way before. But if for all of us, for Adam and Larry and myself, it gave us a kind of counterpoint to bounce off, where it freed me up in a way to play something that was really quite transparent musically and quite simple musically. What's also fun about Bad in retrospect for me is that when we created the song, we liked it, but we didn't really reckon it. We didn't see what it was. So it actually appears on Unforgettable Fire, side 2, not exactly buried, but it's not really in the shop window, so to speak.
Right. No, it's not. It shows up on the second side.
Yeah, and that was very, indicative of how we felt about the song at the time. But the tune, when we started playing it live, we realized this kind of gravitas, this intensity that it had. And again, you know, so much of that came in a rush, in an instant. It was not labored over days and days of like trying different ideas. It was not written in that sense that a lot of our songs are written. It was more improvised.
Right.
And that is something that I wouldn't know how to write that. I wouldn't know how to sit down and go on piano, okay, this is how it is. It had to happen in some ways with everyone playing at the same time in the room.